Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Chapter 13a. Last time we talked about mastigophores, also known as flagellates. This time we are going to be talking about ciliophores, which are also known as ciliates. Okay, hopefully you remember the difference between flagella and cilia, but if you don't, that is fine. Okay, if you look on the left, you'll see a GIF with the motion of cilia. They can have just a few cilia, but usually there are many. So where you see the wave function, it's more like it. So whereas the flagella spun and basically created a propeller-like motion, the cilia are shorter and they tend to wave back and forth and create a rhythmic wave that kind of spreads across the entire cell. Again, on the right, you can see the structure of a cilia. It is simpler than a flagella, but it is still not simple. So it is pretty intriguing to think about this actually just being molecules within a living thing. Okay, so that's the refresher if you didn't remember what cilia are. Okay, now when we talked about flagella, remember the flagella for these organisms is the direction that they moved. Now for the cilia, it really doesn't affect the direction that much as far as which way it's going, because you have this rhythm of cilia all over the body, and it's kind of like oars in the water. Okay, so think of the flagella like a motor, cilia like oars. So it really just depends on how the organism moves those cilia as to what direction they are able to go. Okay, but the movement is very different, and you'll see that in a little bit. Okay, our example for a ciliate is a paramecium. You can see that they have the cilia all around the body, and this is a two-dimensional image. So think of this three-dimensional, but it's round, and the cilia is completely covering the body. What you will notice right here is called the oral groove, sometimes called the gullet, or vestibulum is a word that's not usually used. And this basically is just an inlet into the body. You might think of this kind of as a mouth. And what the cilia do is they push things down into that oral groove. And if you follow it down, you can see what is called the cell mouth, or the cytostome, and that's where the food will actually enter. You can see these little pieces, they come down here, and what happens is the membrane pinches off, and you have these little vacuoles of food. And they travel around through the body. They actually make a circle all the way around, and when they get back, anything that is waste is removed. Okay, so it comes in, down, and around, and out. It makes this cycle through the body as it digests. Now, you will also notice that it has what is called a contractile vacuole, and it looks kind of like a little sun that a child would draw. Okay, what this is in most of these organisms, if not all of them, because they have an environment that is primarily water, the water is going to keep trying to enter into their body, the cell. If the water just kept coming in and coming in, the cell would pop. So these canals that you see actually pull water towards this contractile vacuole, and the vacuole will literally spit the water out of the cell so that the cell has the proper amount of water inside. Otherwise, it would either be too dehydrated or would pop because of having too much water inside. Okay, so you're going to see some of this in action. This is a video about the contractile vacuoles in paramecium. How the contractile vacuole works. Now, this, remember we talked about how the food comes into the gullet? This is a paramecium that is eating red-colored yeast. And as the yeast go through the process of digestion, they get broken down and their color changes. So you'll be able to see the food circulating through the body of this paramecium. A lot of the liquid surrounding the paramecium was moving. That is because of the cilia on the paramecium moving the liquid around it. It was kind of stuck in a place. They often put a gel or something in a place so that they can actually see the organism, because if you noticed at the beginning, they actually move pretty quickly. I found this next video. I don't know what type of ciliate this is, but it was pretty impressive in how it was eating. So it has these little tiny flagellates that are zipping around, and ever so briefly you can see a paramecium that comes into view, and you can see that the ciliate here besides the paramecium is pretty small. The paramecium actually scares it. And so these little tiny things that it's eating are truly, truly tiny. Okay? But I thought you might enjoy this just to see a little bit different aspect of life than we live every day. Okay, so this is the ciliate right here, and this is the food coming by. And yes, it's that fast. This is the little flagellate right here. You can see a vacuole is already around it. Okay, this right here would be the nucleus, and you can see through the body of the ciliate that there are numerous vacuoles that's been eating these, whatever they are, as it sits here in the water. And this is from just a pond that was local to the person. And there goes another one. You can see it right here. It's now inside a vacuole, and they're getting digested. The other one's already dead. Okay? And it is pretty impressive that it can move that fast. And you can see why they are considered to be animal-like in the way that they move. That was a paramecium that just frightened our friend. Okay, so you can see the paramecium, if you go back and look slowly, the paramecium was actually relatively large compared to the ciliate, which would be why the ciliate moved away. But this is happening every day in that green slime, in the stuff that's in your sinks and bathtubs and toilets and ponds. Okay? We will talk more about ciliates or ciliophores next time. So until then, farewell.